Hello, and welcome to At Your End Step. My name is Morgan, and I'm here with Mike.
Hello.
And we have another fun-filled episode for you folks this week. Lots to talk about and discuss. Had a few big tournaments that we'll talk a little bit about. And of course, Pioneer is still changing and evolving, and we're still invested in it. So we definitely want to talk about some of the bands they made this week, in fact. So before we jump in, I want to give a quick shout-out and thank you to all of our patrons over on our Patreon. You can find our Patreon at patreon.com/atyourendstep. And if you feel like contributing to us, we really do appreciate it. Our patrons help us pay for hosting and kind of equipment upgrades and things like that. So we do appreciate everything that you folks do for us. So thanks for being a patron. So how was your holiday? We both celebrated Thanksgiving here in the States. So
yeah, it wasn't bad. It was a little hectic. Had some days off. I traveled 2 days to see different family. My wife and I fought through and finished our kitchen, like at least functionally. So that was exciting. Cooked on our stove for the first time since September. Nice. So that's a long time. That's a lot.
That's many months.
And so, and I test drove some Priuses one of the days. So didn't end up getting one yet. Little wasn't quite there price wise, but with enough Patreon.
That's one heck of an equipment upgrade.
But that was one of those things like I've looked at.
Yeah.
And we've got got a kid coming, so like looking at some different things. My wife was like though, like she's like that like you get. In her family, I'm definitely a token liberal, if you will. And she's like, that just plays into it, right? And I was like, yeah, it's fine. It's okay. I'll play the part if I have to.
Yeah, I mean, like it's a comfortable vehicle for your future child. I think like it'll be okay.
That's not the gas mileage.
That'll be good too, especially in transit.
But not yet. But someday,
soon,
hopefully.
We'll make that a new tier for Patreon.
I feel like we're chomping on the Dungeon Daddies flavor a little bit.
Yeah, probably.
Like if you donate the Honda Odyssey tier.
Yeah, correct.
How was yours?
It was good. It was filled with family and food, and we had like our first Friendsgiving with a couple of our friends, a couple of Catherine's friends and
Read
stuff
that
like
it's
that.
Not me. So
no, it was it wasn't our friend group in particular. Not that you wouldn't have been invited.
No, it's
the more the merrier.
Message received.
But that was a good time as well. But they were a bunch of people that are like several years younger than Catherine and I. They're in like their mid to late 20s, and Catherine and I are both in our very early 30s. So, but it's
super late 20s.
You'd say very 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 late 20s. So it's definitely like there's like a shift that obviously happens where you're like, everyone is just too loud.
Yes,
it's the weirdest thing.
It's
gonna make me sound far older than I am, and I realize that I'm still very very young, and I appreciate that. But every one of these kids was too loud.
Did they tell them to get off your lawn?
No, I didn't. Well, it wasn't my lawn. Someone else's lawn. They can do whatever they want with their lawn.
I went to a friend, my brother's Halloween party at Halloween time, and like my brother is like he's mid-20s, a little younger than me,
like 3-4 years younger.
He's older than mid-20s now, I guess, but he's still like definitely, and like his friend group though was definitely like because his girlfriend is younger than him, and and I was like, and like at one point like we were, it was a place that was fairly close to my parents' place, and I had this moment where like my wife's not here, I don't really know any of these people, I'll walk home, and I did. So it was definitely like I got told my brother like, hey, I'm good guy. He's like, oh really? I was like, yes. It's like this is not for me.
I'm done with it. I've closed this chapter of my life. And again, everyone here is too loud.
Oh my gosh, so loud.
So loud. But they were it was like in a house, like, so it's not like you have to like worry about people calling the cops or anything like that.
It's just for your brain.
Yeah. So it's just like, oh, okay, I can't quiet anyone down because like we're on like property that they're owning. So it's like, But their neighbors are really close. I feel like we walked out and we were like, man, they still can be. You can still hear people from this home, and like your neighbors are not far enough away to be like, "Oh, we can't hear anything." They could definitely hear you, but I guess they don't care.
No, I guess not.
So fair enough. But it was a good time. I really just appreciated the time off, and my wife and I we did some shopping because we're those kind of terrible people, and we own up to it. We admit to it, but we just like it. So you got us, capitalism. Congratulations.
I did a little bit of shopping from home, and I did a little bit of Cyber Monday too. So
yeah, same.
I did get my Sir Fetch'd to level 100,
Oh,
and
that is a
bottle
lot.
capped it out. So
That is a lot. That is a very
my quest is
Sir
nearing
Fetched's
completion.
A buff bird.
That's yeah. There's some. I was looking for imagery to possibly get a playmat done, which I have to decide like by tonight because they extended the sale, so I have to keep. I want to, but there is a subset of Sir Fetched fan art that shows him real muscly and like erotically muscly, which is like weird because it's a Pokemon in the first place. And I don't know what to think about it. I actually sent one to my brother, so I have one for you to look at.
I don't.
Nope, Morgan, you have to look at it.
This is a podcast and not a visual medium.
I'm sending it just for Morgan.
That's no good.
And I don't think my Sir Fetch'd looks like this.
I mean, listen, there was a lot of complaints about them not updating like the Pokemon model, so like you just don't know. You really just don't know.
Gotta see those polygons. I gotta see them. Oh man.
But yeah, it was definitely a good time and a good holiday to be had here. So, if any of you folks did celebrate with your family, I hope you had a good one as well. What?
Because you said hood.
No, good one. Sorry,
Hood one.
Good one. I know I started off with an H and then transitioned to a hard G, and I don't know why. There's that silent H in front of good. We all know it. We just don't say it.
Let's talk about Magic.
Fair enough. So, we did talk about Pioneer a little bit at the top of the show, and we did get some more bannings that happened in the format this Monday, and it was a pretty expected level of bannings, I would say. So we had 3 cards exit the format, which were Smuggler's Copter, Once Upon a Time, and Field of the Dead.
And once upon a time, the format had Smuggler's Copter
and Field of the Dead, but no longer. And I think like these were pretty expected bans. Like these were all cards in dominant decks within the format. They were all cards that have been banned in Standard. Not that it necessarily influences what happens in the metagame, but it's a good indicator.
I do think that's interesting. It's important that they did this after like the week of PTQs as well. So they had a lot of data.
100%.
But you mentioned it being banned in Standard and influencing. Matt Sperling, who I know is not always a favorite of either of us, but is writing a piece about these bannings, and he mentioned like how this has felt like this banning he like almost seems to verify that the process is working.
Yeah,
like this idea of like the reverse banning, because we could have assumed that at the beginning of the format anything that was banned in a former Standard was probably going to be on the ban list, but some of the cards that were the egregious problems are making their way there. So this has been interesting to say the least. But yeah, these bans I think were clear cut and make a lot of sense.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Field of the Dead is just a card that honestly neither Standard nor Pioneer were equipped to really deal with. Now at FNM this week, I did get to crumble to dust multiple Field of the Deads, and I got to tell you, that still feels good. Still feels good. So I'll probably forget to take those out of my sideboard going back to FNM. Which shout out to Comic Town for taking the leap and switching Standard to Pioneer. Love it. Hadn't played an actual FNM event in months at this point because we've just been brawling. But did I play some Pioneer last week?
Yeah.
But that makes a lot of sense. If, as far as Smuggler's Copter, we had the mono black aggro deck.
I think like there's an existence for Smuggler's Copter inside of the format. I think you do have tools to combat it, and I think it's good for the aggressive decks for that card to exist. But I think like mono black aggro really pushed it over the top, in my opinion. And maybe I'm wrong about that. Maybe the card is just like too.
I think the problem with the card is that you say it's good for the aggro decks for it to exist, but like the problem with Smuggler's Copter will remain the problem that's always been with that design, and why they're always going to have to like design
like raid-in vehicles a bit.
Vehicles with that in mind. And I think they fixed some of that in most recent sense by making like color-costed vehicles helps with that.
I think so.
Smuggler, when you say literally that like every aggro decks need this, then you're saying that like every color of aggro deck, like my blue-white monument deck was playing had 4 Smuggler's Copter, and mono black aggro had 4 Smuggler's Copter, and a bunch of the mono red decks had 4 Smuggler's Copter, and even some of the green decks had Smuggler's Copter. Like there's no color restriction. It always does the same thing, and it gets to the point where if the card is good enough, like the aggro decks need it, then it's the first 4 in every aggro deck, and that's what we saw when it was in Standard. So I think that's where everything on that card is just a little too good for its rate, and that's just where it is. So if it wasn't colorless, then maybe just red gets Smuggler's Copter or something like that. But It's just too efficient at what it does.
Yeah.
with
I get
no
that.
color restriction.
Yeah, and eventually, like, obviously we had, Mono Black kind of push it over the edge, but eventually, like, even if Mono Black didn't exist, there was going to be something.
Was going to.
There's
Something
gonna
was
be
going to push it. It's that good. It's that good of a card.
And Once Upon a Time is just an abomination of a Magic card.
But Once Upon a Time almost works the same way Smuggler's Copter did, where you actually started seeing decks that were just like, I don't know, I guess I'll put 8 green duels in this and just play Once Upon a Time. So not to mention the green decks that we're selling out to just play as many, here's my Ladder Werewolves, here's my Elvish Mystics, maybe sometimes some, Gilded Geese as well.
Yeah.
And then what are the best 3-drops in the format that I can consistently power out on turn 2, whether that be the Legion Loyalist Goblin, that's what I'm going to think, Goblin.
There's Rabble Master.
That's it. Or is it 3 mana 5/5s in a green deck? I'm not sure which one it is.
Yeah.
Or is it just Oko?
Is it just Oko?
But those decks now have to build a little bit differently and build a little less efficiently, which I think was needed.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like, having like the amount of consistency that Once Upon a Time just let decks have for free is too much. It was just too much. So I think that's the reason why we see it banned in Standard, and the reason why we see it banned here. And I think, like, overall these bans do push the format into a healthier place going forward. And it's kind of like a bit of a brave new world for the format. Now we still have cards that people are looking at as being potential problems. We still have things like Nexus in the format, which people are kind of afraid of. We still have the Delve spells, the blue Delve spells, and Treasure Cruise and Dig Through Time, which exist. And of course, the man, the myth, the legend, Oko, Thief of Crowns, of course, is still around. So it's just, I don't think the format is, in a healthy place, but it's in a place where it can kind of progress, and we can kind of figure out what's next. And I think this does let things like blue-white control really back into the format. It lets mid-range decks, I think, back into the format as well. I think aggro may have to figure out a few more things. Maybe U-Shift, red is probably didn't get affected by this, so now could gain some ground.
I would suggest going to the Twitter of one Aaron Barish to see some updated lists. Their tweet, I don't know if it was actually just, it had to be yesterday, I guess, but it was like, in these trying times.
Yeah, it may offer you this mountain, yes. Which is 100% true. She's been working on Mono Red. She's been playing Mono Red in like the PTQ series and has been really tuning that deck before the bans. And like, again,
every version of Red, also Possibility Storm, whatever.
And it's just something that gains because it didn't lose anything, right?
Yeah.
And it's not to say like Mono Black aggro could still definitely be a deck. It just is different now, so people have to figure it out. And same goes for any of these green decks that kind of had a Once Upon a Time aspect. Like, you just have to figure it out, and your deck is probably not going to be as good, but that's fine because your deck was probably a little bit too good beforehand.
Like, Field of the Dead, it bans a deck like it does.
100%.
The other ones,
at
least in my mind, don't have to ban decks. They just make decks.
Right.
Yeah, if it takes the power level down out of a couple of those decks,
yeah,
that's fine.
Yeah, you don't have field decks anymore. Like, you can still have big mana decks; they still will and do exist.
There's a bunch of Ulamog decks that you can be pointed to.
Yeah, 100%. So I think like the only deck that probably is going to have a hard time with this, and this was like I brought up by Todd Anderson on a stream today, was like Hardened Scales.
Yeah,
like those decks really, they leaned heavily on Once Upon a Time just for their consistency, and like those kind of decks might have a more difficult time sort of existing. But everything else, I think, is still fine. It's still playable.
Yeah, I would agree.
But I'm excited to watch people stream and see what they're kind of putting together. Like I was telling Mike before the show, there's an Abzan deck. Like Aspiring Spike is a fairly prominent Pioneer streamer. Like, he's been really dedicated to the format and streaming a lot of stuff. And he has really good blue-white control lists that is pretty interesting. Fun fact: did you know that Supreme Verdicts are like $15 a piece?
No, but I have them.
Good. You should be glad that you have them.
Yeah.
But I really like his blue-white control list, and also he has an Abzan list that he's been tinkering with, and I'm a big fan of. You show me a Siege Rhino.
Yeah,
you're a fan. I'm
surprised you didn't latch on to Durward's like Siege Rhino Glorybringer deck. Though I think that was a once upon a
That's
time
definitely
deck.
a once upon. There's no way that's a 4-color
Caleb
deck.
Dorward may have helped get a number of these cards banned. So
Yeah, I mean, so did Todd Anderson.
That's
Let's be
also
real.
true.
So
Also
I
true.
think he said on a stream he'll take credit for 3 because it's one card, and 2 halves of cards basically. Because he said like other people will play these, but I also did. So, but I think like there's been a lot of people like I saw some tweets like, oh, when is this going to stop? And it's just like, no, this is what they set to do with the format. Like they have to tweak it, they have to adjust the knobs with it so that they want to finish by Q1 of 2020. That's their stated goal from what I remember in the article. So it's just like that's fine. Like I want you to tweak the format.
That's when people can start playing it in paper.
Yeah, sure. I mean like. I think like you definitely, if you're making an investment in paper, you have to realize that like, hey, some like, I mean,
oh no, I'm just don't you just hate that like all the things we were frustrated with WotC about, they still just like trip and fall into like people loving to play their game.
Yeah, it's awful,
and I'm part of that.
Oh, 100%. I'm super excited about it, but I'm like, it's just you just wonder when the time's gonna run out where it's like I don't like Magic anymore, and it's just like not yet. And I don't know when that's going to stop, and it's disappointing. I'm disappointed in myself.
Yeah.
Dang it for darn! I just wake up in cold sweats in the night, cursing.
Mark Rosewater?
No, not Mark Rosewater. Richard Garfield.
Oh, Richard Garfield.
Just cursing his name for creating the game. Period.
So you're saying that you, a middle-aged white man, wake up in the middle of the night and yell Garfield?
Yeah. 100%.
Because your white and orange cat ate some of your lasagna because you have that cat.
Yeah, we have lasagna in the fridge too. I understand.
Ladies and gentlemen, I am podcasting with John Arbuckle.
I hope not.
Welcome to the cast.
I like that, man.
Who does?
No one.
Not even Garfield.
I mean, there's a whole Reddit dedicated to like weird. Have you seen the sorry, I'm sorry, John, like Reddit?
Is that the one where you?
It's all creepy Garfield art.
Oh no, I've not seen. I've seen the ones where they delete Garfield.
Those are funny
from the comics.
These are not
John.
funny. These are disturbing.
Oh, okay.
These are like H.R. Geiger-esque like depictions of Garfield and John's relation. It's don't go to it.
I'm not going to. No, you're
but,
good. But you, John, you've been there.
Yes, clearly.
You are the Arbuckle.
Man, that's disturbing. I don't like this anymore. We're moving on.
Okay.
So next topic
has to do with cats. I just want you to understand.
I understand. We're not moving far. So the next thing we want to talk about is last week there was some sort of guerrilla sneaky sort of marketing
I wish there was a guerrilla tactic secret lair
now. For something called Secret Lair, which is a new product that Magic the Gathering is releasing, or Wizards of the Coast is releasing, I should say. And it is a set of 7 collected sets that are limited editions. They are time bound in the way that you can only order them in a certain time frame, but they are not product bound.
They are print to order.
Print to order. And they contain several sort of iconic cards in sort of unique art, basically. So art that you wouldn't necessarily find in a set that has to be sort of altogether look at similar. Basically, there's some pretty wild things going on in some of these collections, and they can contain, something like 1 card to, I think the most that one contains is like 5 or 6. And these are themes. They're themed around certain cards. So the first one is called Bitter Blossom Dreams, and it is a Bitter Blossom. So you get a sort of full art Bitter Blossom, and then 4 Fairy Rogue tokens. And these sets range in price between I think $30 and $40. It's already over, but you could order all of them yesterday for $200, and potentially get them delivered if you lived in Seattle and were the first 4 people to DM the Wizards account. There's Bitter Blossom Dreams. There is Eldraine Wonderland, which are all snow-covered lands, a set of 5 snow-covered lands based in Eldraine, and it's obviously a very snowy Eldraine. We have Restless in Peace, which are 2 dredge cards and then a Bloodghast. So you have Golgari Thug and Life from the Loam, as well as Bloodgast, and they all have this sort of unique panoramic art. The Bitter Blossom is also panoramic art as well. If you align the Bitter Blossom and the tokens, they all form one art piece. You have Seeing Visions, which are as a playset of Seer Visions, but they all have different, pretty wild art, if I have to say so myself.
Yeah, they went very, very abstract.
Yes, except for the one that definitely has Sans Undertale on it, which has been the joke of the MTG Twitter.
Yeah,
but you will like. So if you like any of these arts, you might just like one. And like the best thing about this is you get all 4 arts, obviously. So you're just like now you're just trading other people that have also purchased this to be like you got to get the set of art that you like. And then there's an Explosion Sounds one, which is another panoramic art, but it's all goblins. So you have Goblin
Bushwhacker, Goblin Sharpshooter, Goblin King, Goblin Lackey, and Goblin Pile Driver.
Correct. So. And again, this art is kind of out there, kind of wild, so very, very unique. And that one's just called Explosion Sounds. If I didn't say that off the bat, I just want to make sure. And then you have Kaleidoscope Killers, which is I don't know. That's pretty violent.
Yeah.
And
what that kaleidoscope did to you, but
yeah. This one has 3 prominent sort of multicolored commanders. So we have Reaper King, Sliver Overlord, and Ur-Dragon. I forget what it is.
Sign of the Ur. Or no, it just is the Ur-Dragon.
Yeah, it's the Ur-Dragon. And this one is the art on it is definitely like
old school style.
Yeah, you would see this airbrushed on the side of a van.
Oh, well, that's also
of
true.
Some persuasion. I was thinking like extreme Lisa Frank. But that's just like all the bright colors because they're very obviously very multicolored,
yes.
Sort of focused in their art. And then lastly, but certainly not least, is the cute kitty one. It's just oh my god, kitties, and it has I think 5 prominent cats from Magic history. We have Regal Caracal, Quasali Slingers,
a prominent cat.
Leon War Leader, Arabo, War of the World, and then Miri, Weatherlight Duelist, and then a couple of cat tokens. And they're very, very cute, and they're kind of chomping on the flavor of the Animal Collection from Star City Games, if I do have to say so myself.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think any of the artists that participated in that have art from this, but they're definitely chomping on that flavor.
Yeah, so. that one doesn't. Cats are just not.
They don't connect with you. Yeah.
Oh my god. Dogs, I guess maybe, or doggies. I don't know. I want to ask you questions. Okay.
Sure.
One, and this one you could think about. We would come back to this one, but what would your secret lair be?
Oh, I need time to think about that.
Okay,
for sure.
So maybe we put a pin in that. Maybe end of the episode, or maybe we come back next week. But think about what your secret lair would be, and that could be certain cards or specific artist, or what would you like to see. So, but secondly, what are your thoughts on these in general? Like as far as like this model.
So they're not for me, which is fine. I don't think Magic products need to serve any particular subset over the other one. But I think they're good. Like, I think like there's clearly a market for unique and different art on cards that can't fit into the bounds of a set, right?
Sure.
And a lot of the art on these cards you would never ever see in a standard legal set or anything like that. So
honestly, not even an unset.
Yeah, for sure. Like, and I think that there's definitely a market for that. So like, why not create something for it? I think it's fine that it exists. I think if it's something that you want, it is there. I imagine that they'll probably keep doing it, and maybe down the road they'll release will hit me, and I'll be like, well, I have to get this. You know what I mean? Like it's fine that it is here, and it's is for people, and I think that there are definitely people out there that are very excited about it. But it's not for me, and that's okay. What about you?
I think I'm in the same boat. I do think it's a pretty interesting way for WotC to get a lot of artists in their in their wheelhouse that they may not have worked with before and wouldn't have had a reason to, who now they have a connection with for one reason or another, and who knows what that might be. Would that be something for card art in the future, or promotional art, or book art, or animation for a TV show? So I think like that is smart on their end. There's been a lot of criticism on social media that I think is justifiable, that this is another weird product thing. So we've had all the Mythic editions, now we have all these that just like are essentially like should be sought after products. I'll come back to what I mean on that, because obviously it's a little bit different in Secret Lair, but that entirely forego the local game store. And that is awkward. So I think like there's a lot of criticism that have been about that that I think WotC should listen to, because like we saw on social media yesterday that there is essentially for each one you get a special stained glass art Planeswalker promo.
So that's kind of the other side of this, is that something that was not announced with these is that they do include one of each layer includes seemingly at random. There hasn't been any sort of official information about this from what I understand, but seemingly at random a stained glass Planeswalker card from War of the Spark, which are going to be probably highly sought after.
Yeah,
that's very
sure.
like engaging art, and like I know it's just a filter over existing art, but like people like the way that it looks. And I think like that is my only criticism of this, is that while it's great that that's in there and that's added value for the people that bought this without knowing, I do hope that there will be other avenues to get those cards.
And here's the thing: they exist. We have this ridiculous package of like how promos work at F&Ms or in the game store, and how the collector's edition and all these things. And it feels like it's like who. I want them to consider who they're benefiting. Now, Secret Lair is a very unique product, and the way that they are doing the print to order, I think is smart. These are very experimental. So they obviously are hoping to recoup their costs on like working with the artists, right? But at the end of the day, like I could also like you look at those Serum Visions, right? Like I just use that as an example. That's a risk. Like that's a risky thing.
100%.
So like I don't blame them for being risk averse. Like as a company, try this and see what happens. So I'm not upset by this model, and print to order makes a lot of sense. And I have a feeling that if this is successful, which it seems to be, people have definitely reacted to these. Then we'll see them more. But and that's an encouraging thing if you're working for WotC. Like, if it's, hey, tell us what Secret Lair you'd want to make. You know what I mean? Like that is an interesting avenue to do some things that don't exist otherwise. But I do think it's awkward to have these premier products that are going to be sought after that once again forgoes game stores. That's where I'm at on it.
Oh yeah, I mean, like I understand like that sentiment, but I think like the way that this product operates, you can't have it in a.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
I think and like maybe that changes when they like if the sales here are robust, then maybe there is a minimum print line, for these things. Like maybe.
But see, like then you just run into a difficulty of like, if you serve it to the game store, then you serve it only to the game store.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. I don't know what the fix is there. I just think it's worth thinking about the biggest money items this year have not been in stores.
Right.
And I think that's weird.
So I wonder what I think the data point that we're missing as an observer is what is the biggest money item to a local game store? What moves off the shelves?
Sure.
So, and I don't think that I know that. And I think like that's important insight for us, because I think like the most expensive things have been sold exclusively from WotC, but I don't know if those are always things that sell inside of a store necessarily.
I think the best anecdotal evidence I could point, and it's anecdotal, but you could point to what used to happen From the Vaults, and how they, because I was through the store, they would get marked up, and those were money makers for the store. That was really their purpose.
Yeah, I don't think that was. I don't think that was.
I'm not saying it's ideal.
No, I just feel like, I was going to say, I was like, I don't think that was a good thing necessarily.
Right, but this is all of one or none.
Yeah.
So overall, I if this made you happy, if one of the things you're buying makes you really happy, that's great. I do think that I wish they would, be more flexible in like some of their modeling with this. Like, this is like the 15th time in the last 2 years that we've gotten like a series of special art basic lands that come in like either as a like individuals or as a series of 5. I know there's a couple people on Twitter, Gear for Gears being one of the ones I saw the most. Was like, I want a lot of these. Like, and I get it. You want me just to buy 5 of them at a time, 30 a pop. But like, what if you're like me, who like I literally only use a certain type of mountain and I like those mountains. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
I just want mountains, right? No, and I think like if you're gonna do print to order, then like, I don't know, maybe my secret lair is 15 of these snow-covered mountains, and that's it. I don't know how finite we can get there, but like, especially with like when you're spending this on like basic art or basic land art is I think a little bit different than the rest of these things, and that I hope they rethink about. Like, I think I'm going to think about that in the next wave of these they do.
Yeah, it's something that is, it's not something we could be like, oh, we could just have one of these for a cube or a commander deck. Right. It's like, no, you need a lot of them.
Oh, trust me. I thought, here's the thing, they're not for me, but I do enjoy those art enough that I was like, this is cheaper. This would be a sweet battle box replacement.
Sure. Definitely. But I think, like, I agree. Like, this has definitely been the experimental year of, like, let's just make a lot of products. And some of them, I think, have been successful, and some of them have not. And I think, like, they're trying to figure out, like, they had a stagnant product line for so long that you could always expect, like, you have your standard sets, you have your From the Vaults, you have your master sets, and like that's kind of just what they did and went through the motions. And now it's just like, let's get weird. And I'm okay with them.
Let's get weird.
And I'm okay with them getting weird. And like, I think there is a genuine concern with that weirdness, not necessarily benefiting the LGS, but like, I don't know how much, like, Wizards doesn't sell. I don't think they don't sell directly to an LGS. An LGS has a distributor.
No, it's a distributor. I get that.
I think like them obviously cutting out the distributor and cutting out the LGS obviously makes them more profits, but it also lets them be risky. I think with printing these out or printing something like this out and having to ship it to a store and it like not hitting, now stores have all this product on hand that doesn't move. So it's just like, I think the stores do want something that is beneficial to them, that does make them, money, which is obviously what they prefer, but they don't want bad products that are risky products to sit on their shelves.
Yeah,
either.
For sure. And we saw that with like Brawl, right?
Yeah,
being something they underprinted at least in that first wave because they have that fear. So.
I'm not. This isn't my field. This requires a lot of data that we don't necessarily have to say like one way or another. I think people can look at this and be like, wow, another thing that the LGS is don't get. But also, do they want them? Like, do you know that they want them? Like, you may want to be able to pick up them at your LGS, but maybe that's just a you thing and not a popular opinion.
Right. So,
I don't know. I think like. Talking to someone from that side of the business would be kind of interesting to be like, what actually moves? Like someone has to have their data points as far as like what actually moves. Not that they would ever reveal those, but I think like that's another aspect that people should actually be looking towards. Like maybe you think this would move in your LGS, but maybe that's not true for every single one. And maybe sealed product doesn't move at all in particular LGS. Maybe it's just all single. So like, who cares?
Yeah, it's possible too, but.
Do I think like they should stop maybe putting everything in big box retailers? Yes, I think that is an argument I think you can have. Is their increased support for big box retailers having the same thing that your local game store has? I think that's genuine frustration if you're an LGS owner, because you should want to come to my store to get sealed product, not go to Walmart or go to Target or something like that.
True.
That is a genuine argument I think you could have. For these experimental products, I think like you're probably saving the LGS potential risk by not having them. But that's just my casual observation, my 2 cents. So, but I don't think there's anything else to. The only other thing that I can think of, and I don't know if you saw this, but there was a statement released by Reed Duke about some of his.
I did not see that.
About some of his recent sort of things that have been going on. It's on his Twitter. So. But maybe I'll let you to take a quick gander at that while I read the Comic Con ad break here.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. So, while Mike looks that up here real quick, I want to give a quick shout out to Comic Town. They're going to have a Star City Games Modern IQ this weekend on the 7th. It's going to be a 1K IQ. Cash prizes down to top 8, I believe. It's going to be on Saturday, December 7th, with registration opening at 11 and players meeting at noon. It's a $35 registration fee, and a deck list will be required, so best to show up early. Yeah, go down there. Pick out your favorite Simic. No, just kidding. Just pick out your favorite modern deck and then go down there and compete and try to get queued for the next Invitational. And of course, we're in the holiday season in the States, so if you are local to the Central Ohio area, be sure to visit Comic Town to buy all the gifts for all the nerdy and geeky people in your life. They have obviously Magic product, but also a lot of other games, and of course comic books and just a bunch of other stuff. So be sure to check them out and support your small business and your local business. So, did you find it?
I did.
Take a gander.
I did.
It basically, since you just read it, you could summarize it. So
he seems to have recognized that his silence on these things is not a great decision. He is trying to make it clear that he supports Owen in the process he's going through now, not what the things he did in the past. And he apologizes for not helping the community heal. I'm glad he said something. He's the kind of person who I probably would take at face value. A lot of other folks I might not. Maybe that's just me being foolish again. I don't know. I was just perusing through some of the responses to it as well. I will say it's fine to accept this apology. It's also fine to not be a fan of his because of these decisions.
Definitely.
There's a lot of people on here who are accusing those of being upset with Reed as being all sorts of things, and I gotta tell you, that's a weird response to this. Like I just scroll through a bunch of these really quick, and that's a weird response to be like, gosh, all these jerks won't accept this apology now. Like, he said he was sorry. It's like, did you read his apology? Because he seems to suggest that he may have hurt these people, and he knows that. So maybe I don't know what your point is anymore. I don't know. Here's the thing. Over the last 2-ish, 3-ish weeks, for the whole year, the Magic community is the worst thing in the world. I don't know what to tell you. It is full of awfulness. So right now I am going to take Reed's apology straightforward. I will never follow him the way that I used to. That's just the truth. And I think that he doesn't care about me personally as a fan because he has no reason to. But if he did and we had this conversation, I feel like he'd be the person who'd say, yeah, that's fair. I get that. I don't begrudge him still trying to do the things in the Magic community. I still think his Hall of Fame his bid was well deserved, but I'll just say it's weird to just read this apology and turn around and go, see blank holes. Do they normally bleep that or I can't remember which one they bleep, where they bleep the actual not the curse but the word after it.
Probably the curse.
Okay, fair enough.
Probably,
but you know what I mean? Turning around and being is anything good enough for you? Being hey, maybe read. I don't know. Maybe just read what Reed said.
Yeah, that's. I completely get that. But I just wanted to say and make mention that there was something.
No, and I'm glad he said something.
He did say something. So
I think that cynical me would like to say that looking at this was Sunday, this could just be a dump, if that makes sense. We got a PT coming up and everything else, but whatever. I'm glad he said something. It's better than continuing to sit in silence. And if that's not good enough for you, then that's fine.
Yeah,
you don't have to be excited or accept it.
Nope, sure don't.
So there you
Very
go.
True. All right, so let's move into competitive here a little bit. Now, we won't talk really at length about the things that happened because one of them was Legacy, and half of one of them is kind of a different format now. So there was, of course, the Invitational at Star City Games at the SCG Con Winter. All you need to know is Dave didn't top 8, so we're disappointed in him. Pretty much exclusively.
He deserves that.
Definitely. We looked at him and he said, you could do better. And he just didn't.
Now, I do want to say his failure in this event, and I do mean failure, you know,
in the most literal words,
did spawn the deck that I'm enjoying playing in Pioneer.
Oh well, when you say it like that,
but it was a failure.
Yeah, we're not de-emphasizing that. So I mean, like looking at even like the Pioneer list, there is some information you can kind of glean from it. So like there's some decks that did go 7-1 and better that hey didn't get a card banned from them in the recent history. So like definitely, I
don't know if I can glean any information from the Pioneer deck list, Morgan.
So if you click on 7-1 or better, that should be.
Oh, okay, but not the top 16.
Definitely not. I can tell you that.
Yeah, they're just not there.
Oh, it's just not there. It only works. Oh, you know why? I'm looking at the old website. So,
oh, is that what happened?
I just thought that hey, you know,
it's literally old.starcitygames.com.
Correct, 100%. So.
Oh my God!
Chris Baroni, I think it's Baroni, won the tournament. He played Mono Black Aggro as his Pioneer deck, and then he played Humans as his Modern deck, which is kind of Humans is seeing a bit of resurgence. I think that coincides with Death Shadow seeing a bit of resurgence as well. So that's pretty good. I like to look at the 7-1 or better lists. These are lists that perform the best in the tournament. You never know what your deck lists in the top 8 are. You never know like how they performed in Modern versus whatever. How their path to get there may not have been as clear cut as you may think. But as far as like the Pioneer 7-1 list, there are a couple of Is It Phoenix lists which are kind of good to look at. You do have. I think that's the only. Oh, you have a mono red aggro list actually that you can kind of take a look at too. But all the other decks are definitely decks that are no longer legal in the format. So, but modern is definitely something you can take sort of a harder look at. That format hasn't seen a ban in obviously quite some time. But we have some like 4-color Death Shadow lists, mono red prowess, Simic Urza, Infect, Grixis Death Shadow. Devoted Devastation, Mono Green Tron, so lots of actual variation between in the 7-1 lists here, but not necessarily a lot of innovation. I feel like the format has been kind of a little bit stagnant, in my opinion.
I don't disagree with you at all,
but.
I don't know. I guess I'll just start examining Modern a little bit more, playing in the open right after.
Yeah, because Columbus is coming up for you. So,
but I don't know. Modern is in a bad place, and I do hope that they continue to look at it.
You would hope. You would hope that would be the case. Maybe it's something they. I think they're just focused on Standard and Pioneer, and then Modern is sort of like the redheaded stepchild at the moment. And who really knows what's going to happen? But I agree with you. I think like it just needs a little bit of mixing up, and maybe like realistically, it's in a fine place. I don't know. I haven't just been able to observe a lot of Modern because like there's a deck in the format that like I just genuinely like. Makes me feel upset watching it, which is the Simic Urza decks. Like I just feel like those decks may not be the boogeyman as many people are trying to make them out to be, but I just don't think it's good gameplay. Like I just don't think it's engaging, and like I think I'm just tired of like seeing the same rough estimate of artifact cards be in the format and be successful, and it just feels like I've been watching the same deck for years at this point in time. And it may be different.
No, you're absolutely right. That is a good way to put it. And I think like Modern we've championed as a format that like has so many decks you can play and has this like even seeing like Humans and Death Shadow come back and like do more is somewhat exciting. But at the end of the day, two things have remained constant now for so long that they're beginning to drag on the format. And here's the thing: maybe excitement for Pioneer gets WotC to kick into gear on this a little bit, but like the two decks are artifact based decks around Mox Opal and land based decks, like just like aggressive land based decks. Like they have not done enough Field of Ruin was the only piece we've seen that interacts with land specifically, and Artifact Hate, like we had to scream and cry about it because they didn't have enough in Standard when artifacts are too good in Standard.
Yeah.
So I not that there isn't hate, but like we've talked before about how like Urza as a card itself goes around most forms of Artifact Hate. So it is tough to figure out what the best version of that is, and it's frustrating. It is frustrating as a player to see Mox Opal consistently do these things, and it's frustrating to see the big land decks also packed it in there because now you sit here and watch. Is the land deck Amulet Titan or is it Tron right now? Who cares which one it is? Oh, maybe it's Urzatron. I don't know, whatever. And like, oh, okay, what's the artifact deck? I don't know. I'm sure it has Mox Opal in it.
Yeah.
So it is frustrating. Yes, Urza for sure has like kicked those things into high gear. I think it's important that Once Upon a Time has honestly kicked both of those into high gear, and maybe that the writing's on the wall for that card. I think it was on for the last one. I still can't believe that Modern didn't get something done to it at the last major BNR. But and I know that people get tired. We've talked about it ad nauseum on here about wanting for bans and things like that. But like, man, they have said that Once Upon a Time was a mistake. Like Forsyth this week like tweeted about how it's a literal mistake. Like they did not want it to be as powerful as it is. So I don't know. Modern's a frustrating thing. I'm literally going to ignore all this though and still play Snowblade because that's the deck I love, and that's. I realized I started going into the Zelensky auto parts thing from. I'm gonna play some Bant Snowblade because that's who I am and that's who I care about.
and like it just I think like Modern is still theoretically a format that you can do that in, but it is something that I think you're starting to lose points for. It is being a format that you go, well, this is just the deck that I want to play, so that's what I'm going to play. But I think like there are we talked about little shifts that are happening. We talked about like Death Shadow creeping back into the format and being a prevalent piece of it, and that being a small change, and that allowing humans maybe to have more of a viability in the format and things like that. So there's subtle shifts, but again, like there's still just this the combination of Mox Opal, Oko, and Urza that are creating the sort of deck that just is not engaging. Or on the other side of the coin, you have decks like Tron, Mono Green Tron or Eldrazi Tron, which people have always had a pretty nasty opinion about, to be honest, and those still exist in the format. So it's just it feels like there's something that needs to happen, and we've seen like these cards that exist in other formats. I should say used to exist in other formats that now don't. And they still exist in Modern, and I still feel like we're kind of just waiting for that big shift to happen.
Yeah.
And I wonder, what when they're going to have an opportunity to do it, if they're going to do it at all. I just think it's not something that's on their radar. Like I don't think it's something that is, really Pioneer has shifted all the formats. So like. This may not be as true recently as it was previously, but like think about legacy bans. You know what I mean? Think about how often that happened, and that didn't used to happen as often as it has recently. But usually, legacy was like a kind of a set it and forget it format. Right. But now I think Modern is kind of taking that step into that existence really, and then Pioneer is sort of this new the new. Kid on the block, as it were, and it is taking a lot of the emphasis off of Modern. I wish they would change the format. I feel like the format is, capable of being great. We know that it has. We've had great Moderns in the past, but I think like there's just some cards that they have printed recently that have existed far long than they probably should have. That just need to go
like,
finally.
You get to that point there. We felt that with Faithless Looting. Like you worry about like, do things become sacred cows? Do they become brainstorms? And like you have to fear that like Mox Opal is that. But and like I get it. Like if you're the person who spent $400 on Mox Opals, like you don't want that to get banned, but I don't know. At some point, you just have to know it in your heart.
You have to realize that what you're doing with that card is inherently unfair. That you are like while you believe that it is reined in by the fact that you have to build your deck in such a way to make it viable, that doesn't matter anymore.
Okay, hold on. Look, yeah, and I get what you're saying. Like they think this, but we both know if you look at Simic Urza, like you barely have to do it.
100%. But you know that's like people's justification is like
What-
I have to play so
what
many
hoop
artifacts.
are you jumping through here? You're playing literally 3 cards that just got, or 2 out of 3 cards that just got banned from
correct.
standard. Like,
but that has to be like the justification that it is so like it's the same justification that people use for like ancient stirrings. It's just like you have to like the reason why like Ponder and Preordain are too strong is because they don't care about like the types of cards that you are getting off of them. Like it's just raw, a raw cantrip that gets you whatever it is that you need.
yeah,
While Ancient Stirrings only gets colorless cards, and with Mox Opal you have to play so many artifacts to consistently enable it, and it's just like. It's not hard. Like that's the thing. Like you're trying to say that because it's like a difficult thing that you have to do. You have to make these deck, building considerations. But it's just like, guess colorless cards like do everything now. Artifacts do everything now.
that's why Smuggler's Copter got banned in Pioneer.
Correct. So it's just like you people are. I don't know. Maybe this is like an argument that doesn't exist, but I feel like it does. It's just like it's not a constraint anymore. Like you're just doing everything, so what does it matter? Or it's not that much of a constraint anymore. Like you're just like doing a busted thing now, and like it's a Mox. Like that's what it is. And Moxes are consistently busted, and this one has been busted for a long time, and it just needs to go.
Yeah, I don't disagree.
I would just like I don't know. Like I think. I would just like some shakeups in the format. I think like they could really do with something mixing up the format, and I think like you wanted that from Stoneforge Mystic. Yeah,
I think like that's been true the last 2 because you wanted that with Stoneforge Mystic, you wanted it with Jace the Mind Sculptor.
Yeah, you just haven't had it,
and you hadn't. And I think Jace is going to be a harder one in this format because Modern's going to always be sort of a lightning bolt format to some extent, so Jace is always going to have a little tougher time than they did. Now, granted, Bolt was legal in Standard too, but it's different. Those 2 cards, though, still should have done something for fair decks.
Yeah.
And here's the thing: I do think that, like, I said I'm going to probably play Snowblade when we play this Open. I do think that deck is competitive and good. Did Oko help it? Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
But like, here's the thing: like, I am that person who's going to play the deck because I want to play that deck. But like, Heart of Hearts, is that the best deck? Maybe not. You know what I mean? And I think people don't want to have to, and I don't mean this like in a negative way, like, but like, why work harder for a deck that might be okay when you know that these are Oko? You know what I mean? Very clever. I think that's important. Like WotC needs to pay attention to that. Like, hey, unbanning the fair cards didn't do anything.
Yeah.
They're literally ignored. Maybe it's because the unfair cards that are legal are too good. Like, I think that's just where it is.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's kind of the sentiment. So I will see. And like, to be honest, like with all of the, with the sort of consistent bannings that we've seen from Pioneer, I think like maybe in the bannings we recently saw in Standard, like maybe we're working towards taking the edge off of these things. Like maybe we're saying like, hey, like we're trying not to make this such a terrible thing or a bad thing. Like we're genuinely trying to make these formats better.
Right, 100%.
I unfortunately don't think it's going to happen before the Open in Columbus, but
no, it certainly isn't. It certainly is not.
There's an opportunity that like after this next Mythic Championship, they should have another window where they can ban things. But the next Mythic Championship is an arena one, and it's going to be all standard. So probably not seeing anything in Modern shaking the
and like
format.
like I said, like I'm excited to play like that Open because it's team Modern. Like the team element reduces some of the frustration of the format. If it wasn't a team Open though, I might not be playing in it.
Yeah.
So I didn't play in the GP.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I opted to do some things that were more important for my wife and for our house. But like I had that penciled in for a very long time and just didn't, and played Pioneer instead. So
yeah,
and like again, like we're talking about personal experiences here, but I think like he needs to pay attention to players like us who have been the biggest vocal supporters of Modern, who are now feel like the format's getting kind of snatched away from what it could have been. So
that's true.
Could be. I don't want to say could have been. It could be. It could still be.
Yeah, I definitely understand like that kind of ideal. I don't know how much it it affects people's decisions or affects anyone's decisions. I think like the play design team obviously like cares, so like hopefully like that's who we're trying to appeal to with this. And but yeah, I don't think it's a top priority right now, unfortunately.
Yeah, I that's probably true.
But we'll keep rallying against it. Keep saying that things need to change, and hopefully our voices will be carried all the way to the top.
Get these opinions
to top men.
To top men. Wait, to who? To top men.
So there's also a Magic Fest with a GP attached to it over the weekend as well.
What GP?
It was in our favorite international locale. Was
Bologna.
I mean, I put the top 8 on there, but Andrea Mengucci like top 8'd and was so jazzed that he top 8'd, and people were like, "You've literally won over $100,000 playing Magic. Like, what are you doing?"
Don't take that joy away from that man.
I think I don't know if anyone can take joy away from Andrea Mengucci. He is always jazzed about everything. So, but it is important to look at, I guess. Just if you are interested in Legacy, because this is the first big event since you had Ren and 6 banned, so like this is obviously going to be a very different looking format. We still have a couple of bug threshold decks. Looks like bug mid range. So Sultai is still pretty good in the format, but it was won by Miracles. We have still Blue Red Delver showing up, Dredge, Eldrazi Aggro, and Show and Tell. So just out there doing things. Good for you.
Yeah.
So Oko is in 1, 2. I'm assuming 3,
2,
4. At least 4 of the decks. It's probably just 4. It's probably all the bug decks and Miracles.
I want to mention this Miracles deck that literally is playing, as you said, Oko in the main, Arkham's Astrolab, so banned in other formats, and main deck Veil of Summer. Like, it's just like these cards were too hot for standard TV, but for me. Now this is what I'm going to say to my teammates in January. Look at all these Legacy cards I get to play in my Modern deck. Ice Fang Kotal, Arkham's Astrolab, Oko Thief of Crowns.
Yeah.
Like, come on, I made the right choice.
But yeah, so that was all the competitive tournaments that we had to kind of talk about for the podcast. Let's look towards this weekend. So we have Magic Fest Brisbane, which is going to be standard, and then we also have the Magic Arena Mythic Championship 7, which is going to be standard as well. So,
it's just bonkers to me that there's a GP the same week as PT. But
yeah, I don't disagree. But that's normally the case now, right? Technically, they're in the same location, so
it's not like there's going to be coverage of the GP anyway. So why would it matter?
Yeah, definitely not. Yeah, but a lot of people said like, I can't believe we're going back and playing like standard again. But it's just like, well, the format is different now.
Yeah, I think like this year though, like hopefully next year as we see like the Players Tour and how that looks like, the end of this year has felt ridiculous.
Yeah,
so
I don't disagree. I've actually I loaded up Arena and played a little bit of Standard. I played the Jund Sacrifice deck, and it's kind of fun. I still think that there's not necessarily a whole lot of diversity. I still feel like Jeskai Fires is probably the best deck that you can be playing.
Cat Food is pretty.
I don't disagree. I'm playing Jund Sacrifice is just that,
sure.
but with your homeboy Corvold. So
what?
Which that card. It's kind of good.
Yeah, it's pretty great.
It's pretty good. People were pretty upset about it being standard playable suddenly.
That's so sad.
And not being widely available.
Yeah, weird.
Yeah.
You mean these things that could print to demand and they just didn't?
Yeah. Or you run into the Nexus of Fate problem where the ones you can get are
all foil.
All foil.
Oh, that's not true. They're
not. Like saying the ones you can get are all
booster packs.
Correct. The ones you can get are foil. So there's also that. But I'm interested to watch it. I'm interested to see what shows up, what the numbers are on everything. So
I'm assuming we will be watching while we play the Cube Invitational.
Yeah, Cube Invitational is also the other big event, but it's very exclusive, more exclusive than the Mythic Championship.
This is true. So honestly, it gets harder and harder to play these Cube Invitationals. Morgan, I know you don't have this problem, but the green jackets, when you have to wear them on top of each other, it makes it really hard to move your arms.
You've only won twice. All right.
Who else has?
No one.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Thank you. I appreciate the compliment, friend.
But I don't care anymore.
Here's the thing. He says that, but he does.
I mean, it'd be cool to win. But
yeah, see? There it is.
It'd be cool to win, but it's not like I'm over here having a Rocky training montage. Like, I go to Cube Nights, but that's about it. And, everyone else keeps going to Cube Nights as well, so I'm not necessarily gaining on people that have gone consistently since the start of it. So it's just I'm always getting crushed with experience. No matter how many times I keep showing up.
Get an XP plus. That way,
I wish.
Get that booster.
I gotta make sure Dave knows what microtransactions are so he can enable them for his cube.
I hope he does by this point. It's his whole life. It's all of our lives.
It's true. Everything is a microtransaction if you look at it.
Speaking of which, become a Patreon supporter.
Yeah, invest in our microtransactions. Eventually,
Mike's gonna get a Prius.
Papa's got to get a Prius. But no, that'll be exciting, and yeah, I imagine that we'll probably be watching that while cubing and whilst I'm getting crushed in the Cube Invitational. So, but I'm fun. I think the formats have been decided on, so it's traditional draft, and then we're doing sealed as well, which is the first time that we've done sealed in the actual tournament, and then it's a unique kind of draft format for the top four. It's 2-1 or something like that. So it's sort of a 2-person draft format that's going to be happening. And then the last format is, I think the top two are going to play mirror sealed. Yeah. So both have the same sealed deck, and then you have to build a deck from that, and then win the tournament that way.
It'll be wild. Interesting. I'll let you know how mirror sealed was.
Yeah, I understand. So. I get it.
I'm surprised that Dave got rid of Rochester, I'll be honest.
Rochester is the most miserable experience in Magic, and I understand that people love that format, and I understand it, and I get it, but I am so bad at it that it is unfun. It is unfun for me, and here's the thing about it, because it's long to do, right? And you don't get a lot of practice at it at Cube Nights. We've sidetracked into Cube Corner. Sorry, folks. If you don't want to hear us talk about
if you don't know
Dave's
what Rochester Draft is, congratulations.
Yeah, you should consider yourself lucky.
I've been okay at it twice.
So it takes forever. It is a very strategic draft. You draft all your packs face up, basically, and you draft
all picks are made publicly.
Yes, correct. So it's very strategic in what you're doing.
Strategic. It's certainly skill intensive. It is an exhausting process.
Correct.
And half of our group is just a bunch of trolls.
Correct.
So it's
and they're just good. They're just good. So it's really hard to draft.
Oh, I just meant the timing of it. It's just miserable.
Oh yeah, for sure. So needless to say, I will not miss that as a format that we have to draft. I'm excited about sealed and what that can offer. So yeah, we'll kind of see what happens with it, but it's going to be a pretty exciting time on Saturday. So. But we'll report back. We'll let you know who ends up taking down the tournament. And Mike, have you been thinking of potential cards you want to build?
I have not. I wish I had the extra space in my brain for that right now.
I mean, I've been trying.
I fantasize more about sleep nowadays. Than,
fair enough.
Magic cards.
This time when it's coming around, I start working my brain, and I'm like, what could be some cool things? So I always think about it what are holes in the cube that need fixed, and like what we're shooting for power level. And Dave wants like, he looked at the playtest cards. He's like, why aren't people trying to do this weird stuff with cards? So I'm like, oh, we can do that with like that's what we're aiming for. So it's like, all right, well now we can think outside of the box a little bit too.
So, so you're saying that my card can be like. Can have like little things on it that we have to like little puncture out, and then like the 6th time you cast my card, you get a free sub.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, you can have the Subway Mage, Sandwich Artisan. Well, no, so like that's kind of the fun aspect of obviously winning the Cube Invitational lets you build a custom card, which is on power like a pushed in common is kind of your threshold for it. So now knowing some of the push,
sure it is.
Then knowing some of the pushed in commons have shifted up to rare.
I'm fairly certain that Dave's original one was definitely a mythic rare power level, and I'm fairly certain that Dak Rumax was mythic rare power level.
Yeah, that card's busted.
The second one, I don't know if it's mythic rare power level. It's definitely not uncommon though.
Yeah, they're pushed. They're pushed. Definitely not. They're not weak.
I miss Dak Rumax.
Yeah,
I look real good on a card. Thanks, Klug.
Shout outs to Klug, who definitely doesn't listen to this podcast.
I don't care. It's the fittest I've ever looked.
He was very kind. The brush was very kind.
The brush was very kind. TV adds 10 pounds. Brush takes away 120.
Dang.
That's it. That's the show.
Yeah, that's the show. That's a good note to end on. So, thank you everyone for listening. If you want to reach out to us, you can. You have multiple avenues to do so. We have a Twitter. Our handle is YourEndStep. When you add us, it's @YourEndStep. We have Facebook, facebook.com/@YourEndStep. And then finally, we have email @YourEndStep@gmail.com. If you're listening to us on an app that lets you leave a rating or review, we sure would appreciate it. We feel that we're a 5-star podcast most of the time. So,
maybe like 4.5 today.
Yeah, I think we solid show today. Solid show, very entertaining. If you are listening to us via Legit MTG, thank you so much for checking out the show. Be sure to check out some of the other articles and, of course, their online store they have there. We also want to give a quick shout out to Comic Town. So again, they have the Star City Games IQ coming this weekend, so be sure to check it out. Also, again, thank you to our patrons. You can check out our Patreon at patreon.com/@YourEndStep. Am I missing anything? I think I covered all the bases. But that's going to be everything for our show this week. We will catch you next time, and you have a great one. Bye.